Now, in part 3 of the mystery of the Bantu Code in unlocking biblical language, I continue on from part 2. And in part 2, I had said to discuss about the universal language, the proto-universal language that was spoken before the Most High split the languages, all right, into all these new languages we have now. And one major difference I was showing you between the English language, which belongs to the Indo-European group of languages, and the Bantu group of languages, is Indo-Europeans, or basically the English people, in the coding for the word that means human, all right? It alludes to the fact that they are non-sentient beings, all right? That word is kind of confusing for me to pronounce. It's kind of difficult. Bear with me if I do pronounce it wrong, okay? So they say the humans, and human is derived from the word humando, meaning dead. Bantus derive the word Bantu from the concept of being compassionate, emotionally aware, all right? And that's where we derive our collectivist values. Now, I'll show you another difference here in part 3 that will show you that there are different worldviews, in fact, in how the Kibantu language is coded, group of languages, and the Indo-European, and we'll use English in this sense, all right? Now, let's just examine a simple sentence, all right? Just to be able to try and find the two major differences, between these languages, all right? But first, before I proceed, let me share with you a little story. So, one time, I happened to walk into Clubhouse, one of the discussion rooms they have. And in Clubhouse, they had this room that was manned by the American descendants of slaves, the ADOS, for those who don't know. And the ADOS, they're basically Black Americans who've disconnected themselves from Africa. And they want nothing to do with Africa. So you can only imagine the derogatory things that were being said about Africa in that room. But one woman specifically caught, my attention, because she came up on the stage and she started to say that they want nothing to do with the African language. The African language was dead. First of all, I don't even know I'm African. I don't even know what an African language is. We don't have one language that we all speak. Again, I could tell that was already coming from an ignorant point of view. So this lady, by the mere fact that she spoke one language, which is English, she had assumed that then she is the standard unit, okay, of intelligence and wokeness in terms of language, all right? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was so amused, you guys. I was so amused. I laughed so hard, and I'm so glad that my microphone was off, but I laughed so hard. When someone tries to offend you, but in essence, what they end up doing is making you laugh, I laughed so hard. I wasn't even offended at all, but she ended up blessing me like Balaam. But anyway, so in the supposed triumph of this woman who speaks English as an only language and had assumed that all other African languages are dead, I just wondered, from what basis was she coming from, other than the fact that she was ignorant? She didn't even know that Africa didn't have one language, all right? Now, let's just look into a simple sentence, okay? A simple sentence, and compare with the Kibantu Swahili language, right? Now, we'll get a sentence that's the same, basically in meaning, but written in English and one written in Kibantu. So to therefore represent one Indo-European language and one Bantu language, all right? So, okay, now let's pick out the sentence that's as simple as, here we go, hang on. Okay, so let's look at these two sentences, right? English versus Swahili. Now, the first one says, do you know, I didn't know that the sun was shining. Okay? And the second one, which is really a translation of the first, which is in Swahili, is unajua sikujua jua inawaka. All right? Now, these sentences all mean the same thing. Now, in trying to examine, what major difference or what major worldview there could be here, being that they're both written in two different languages, let's examine some properties of grammar, all right? Now, let's look at the English word up here. Do you know, I didn't know the sun was shining. Okay. Do you know, I didn't know the sun was shining. All right? Now, when you just look at that sentence, the one thing that occurs to me or just comes to my head is the fact that there is a subtle allusion. I'll say subtle because it's not outright. There's a subtle allusion to the use of a homophone. Okay? A homophone. I'll explain what a homophone is. But now, know is the idea of being knowledgeable or being aware or being illuminated. However, the word that's parallel in terms of pronunciation is the other word spelled as N-O, no, which means negative, not, or non-affirmative, right? Okay, so when you read that sentence up here, what comes to mind is the fact that it somehow is a sentence that fights itself. Do you know? But the word that comes to mind is also the word no, meaning do not. So that no in essence becomes do you not know, like subconsciously, if you know what I'm saying, all right? Now, in trying to break down this sentence, I decided to use emojis just so you can have like a pictorial representation of it, all right? So you see that? Do you know? And you see that no sign there, which is now the homophone. Homophones are words that sound the same but are spelled differently and have a different origins. So the know up there is to know, to become aware, illuminated. The second no means non-affirmative, not, all right? So you see that emoji, no, and then no, not, and then at the end, I just put another emoji that represents the sun, and I'll tell you why. All right? Now, when we come to the second language, which is Swahili,